It's not, no, 6:30.
Well, they're on me already. 6:31. Let's leave it to Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
To the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Andrew Benson. Here. Doug Day.
Here.
Bronwyn Losey.
Here.
Joseph Wetmore.
Here.
Edward Levine.
Here. Okay. So the first piece of business we have, which is number 4 in your packet, is the presentation on Town of Lansing Doug Road Bridge Replacement, New York State Department of Transportation, Bridge New York Grant Program, Director of Planning CJ Randall, and Councilperson Joseph Wetmore. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, take it away.
Hey, everybody. Some time ago, Joe approached me and asked, hey, what can we do about researching the Doug Road Bridge? Naturally, I turned to our town engineers, and Denny Harner and Jim Morse have been really helpful in getting together the pre-application. And so he graciously agreed to come and speak tonight about the project as well. So pending any comments, additional comments from Joe, I'd like to just turn it over to Jim just to give a brief overview of the project and then see if anyone has any questions. Thanks.
I think that's fine. Let's just turn it over to Jim.
Okay. I guess I'll give a quick overview of the program first. I don't know if you're not familiar with it, it's a little complicated. So a little background, it's designed to as like an enhanced assistance program for municipalities as a way to rehabilitate or replace bridges. Primary aim is to address poor structural conditions and eliminate weight restrictions, which this bridge has both. It also takes into account like other unique factors like detours. Doug Road is a dead end, so there effectively is no detour, which benefits us. Lots of other things, basically is a general way to inject some money into the infrastructure. Any city, town, village, any kind of municipality that's able to accept and distribute state funds is eligible to turn in an application. So there's going to be a lot of people vying for this money. Any bridge project or culvert project, in this case, we're doing a bridge application that carries vehicular traffic is eligible for this. It doesn't include anything like pedestrian bridges or bicycle bridges, like multi-use stuff like that. No railroad bridges. It's purely for bridges carrying local traffic. The availability of funds, they set aside $200 million every year. 50 million of that goes toward culvert replacement programs. The remainder goes toward bridges. Of that 150, they allocate around 90 million for upstate. So let's figure upstate is 50-ish counties. You got a dozen towns or so maybe in that county, a couple cities, couple villages. It means you got to have a really good application because the odds are stacked against you. There's going to be a lot of people with a lot of projects out there looking to get this money. So specifically, the project has to be at a minimum of 250,000 to be eligible. Maximum of 5 million, they say, but they do take into account special circumstances and stuff that drive that cost. Obviously, they want to get as much money out there and as many structures out there as they can. So if you approach them with a $8 million, $10 million project, they're not going to consider it. So that being said, cost is a factor in how they determine who is going to get this money. So since this is a bridge that we're applying for funding for, the program, if we wind up getting a grant with this application, will be 95% funded from the state, and 5% will be what they call a local match. They want you to have some kind of ownership of the project. They just don't want to dole out money recklessly. We all know New York State doesn't do that. So I believe that portion will be taken care of by the county in some way, shape, or form. Historically, they have done that. We've had some discussions with Tompkins County about this, I guess. So they are aware that we're submitting one of their bridges, and last I knew, they are still willing to help us with that 5%. So we get an application together, which I'll get into a little bit later. It's a 2-step review process. They're looking at raw data stuff first, traffic counts, how many people travel this bridge every day, postings, what type of bridge it is, are there design deficiencies, are there structural deficiencies, are there hydraulic deficiencies, lots of stuff like that. So that's the first step. And then the second step, it'll get turned over to engineers and selected people that form this panel who look at the background stuff that the raw data doesn't show you. Something for, in the case of Doug Road, it would be the fact that there is no detour because of the state of the bridge and the state of the road. The bridge is posted, so we got limited access by any truck, fire truck, emergency truck, town highway trucks, snow plows, that kind of thing. Garbage trucks, even, I suppose, if it's a big enough garbage truck. So that's what that second part of that process is going to look at and score. I guess with that being said, I'll share my screen here. Am I allowed to do that? Okay. Screen. Is it working? Which one am I sharing here?
We're not seeing it yet.
All right, how are we now?
There we go.
Okay. All right, so this is the application form, and this is actually what we had submitted for the draft application. You get, in the scoring rubric, you get some quote unquote bonus points for letting them pre-review your application. And the deadline for that was May 5th for bridges. That has already been submitted. That being said, nothing on this is set in stone. It's just something to get thoughts on paper and meet this deadline and get it into the state and get that credit for getting a pre-review. They give you comments back on this draft application and tell you more in detail what they're looking for, i.e., do you need to be more precise on your estimate? Do you know all the affected property owners? Can you prove where your right-of-way is? Stuff like that is what they're looking for. So May 26th, the week from now, we should have comments back from them on that draft. I believe CJ is going to be getting those back. We'll all take a look at them and go through this draft application again and try to address all those. Every once in a while, since I've submitted this, I throw it open myself and just scroll through it and see if there's anything I'm missing or anything that we could improve upon. And then June 9th is the deadline for final applications. That's when everything has to be finalized and turned into the state. So I'll go into what we have so far. This is the first real nuts and bolts part of the application where we lay out how much money we're asking for and what specifically it's going to go towards. We had a little powwow with John Weber, and he took a look at this and said, yeah, it's pretty close to what they actually did for Ludlowville Road, I believe. And he shared some good cost data and input on that with us. So we have the pure construction cost of the bridge at 1.4 million there. You can see on this first line. Any field change payments and mobilization, they kind of lump together. This is just a straight percentage like they recommend. It's typical in a lot of projects for these percentages. That's coming in at just shy of 198,000. Construction inspection, anytime you deal with the state, if you got a project that has state money in it, they want somebody, some qualified individual there 100% of the time, normally during construction, verifying quantities, inspecting work, doing all the paperwork that the state requires, things like that. That cost we got at about 218,000. Right away, that these kind of things, the right away, the design, this construction inspection to some kind of degree is basically like a gut feel kind of thing. They give you percentages and ranges in this application, which are a little bit further on, but you got to kind of exercise some judgment and determine whether you think those fit. The right away, we have at about just shy of 78,000 here on this line. When I used to do this several years ago, that cost was a lot less, but we have had it kind of confirmed a couple times now that the way we arrived at that number is pretty sound. It takes, like I said, it takes a lot of money and time to do business with New York State, and that's just one of the things. This right-of-way money will go toward, since Doug Road is a dead end, I'm envisioning some kind of temporary structure downstream that will have to carry construction equipment during the construction phase of this project, as well as the local traffic. And that will mean temporary easements of some sort, at least for the detour structure. And then once it's appropriate, once we get into preliminary design of this and further along in the process, there may be a need to do some permanent easements for slivers of land necessary to build your road the full width or replace a culvert or something along those lines. And then, of course, it takes some amount of money just to get a right-of-way firm on board and do this work for you. And then design cost, we got about 389,000. I'm thinking that's pretty fair. That's kind of in the middle of their range that they give later on down this form. So total that all up and you're at around 2.2 million, which sounds like a lot of money again, but you got to factor in the idea that you are dealing with New York State and you get their money and you got to play by their rules. And there's a certain amount of hoops and things you need to jump through to do that. So right here is the breakdown of funds. So we're going to be actually requesting somewhere along the lines of 2.1 million from the Bridge New York program. And then the local match portion of that winds up being about 112. It's 95.5 there again. And then here's kind of a breakdown of their suggested ranges for construction inspection, right away, and design, all those kind of hard to figure things. And I think we line up pretty well. I beefed up the construction inspection because there's a large amount of administration that goes along with that, and a lot of times those two are separate. So I added some money for some administrator somewhere to log on to that EBO program that DOT has and put in payrolls and applications for payment and all the WBE stuff. That stuff takes time. So I added a little bit to the construction inspection for that. Right away, if you scroll down a little here, somewhere they say basically it's an average is like 30 grand just to get a right of way firm on board. And I have enough money in there for the 2 temporary easements, but I'm thinking one of the things I'm going to inquire more about is maybe some more money for right away. There was a lot of stuff mentioned about the turnaround and the condition of the road and the drainage and stuff that maybe if we do it right, we can get like a little bonus add-on to this project and get a decent turnaround down at the bottom or something. Things like that. So like I said, this is a draft. These things are subject to change, and I'm at least 2 or 3 times a week I'm opening this up and looking at it. So a lot of this other stuff is just checklists here. Yeah, so one of the requirements of this project is that you have to be in construction in 2 years. And that sounds like a crazy long amount of time. Dealing with the DOT, it is not, especially COVID typically. So DOT will break this down in phases as you go through this program. You'll have to, if you get this money, first thing you'll have to do is select an engineer. They will begin preliminary design, and then you start your right-of-way process, and then you start final design, and then construction. And in between all of those steps, the DOT will want to review everything before they'll allow you to move on. And historically, in my experience, that takes about a month. So you're looking at 5-6 months at least in a normal time, quote unquote normal time, of DOT review. Lately, that has almost doubled because it has become very easy for them to say, I'm not working in my office, call or email. And then you try to call or email and they say, not available. It's easier for them to push you off. So I think a byproduct of that you can expect like 25 to 50% more time for all these reviews. So 2 years sounds like a lot, but you start knocking out chunks of time for things like this, and it can become a challenge sometimes to get these projects out on the street in 2 years. So as a result of that, we're anticipating taking that whole 2 years, which I think at this stage of the game, you kind of have to assume things like that. And then once the project is bid out and awarded, you'll have 30 months to complete construction, which I don't anticipate this project taking 30 months to build. So yeah, now I have some supporting data here. This is like a mandatory form you got to turn in with the application. This is the first round of that scoring evaluation phase that they're going to do once they get your application. This is all the raw data that they collect.
Can you magnify that at all? We just can't see it.
Can you see it now? Zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, zoom in. It's hard to read any of the lines. Oh, that's
Okay.
much better.
There we
Thank you.
go. All right. This is basic info here at the top. Bridge number, Tompkins County region. The owner is the county, but there is specific language in the program documents that says basically that we are allowed to submit for funding on this bridge because we have an interest. That interest being the two roads that it connects are town roads. So Doug Road Bridge carries Salmon Creek. The AADT is very low. And I did notice this morning that the county has a traffic counter out there. I'm not advocating fudging the data, but if people have trips out there to make, I suggest they make them. So AADT of 62 is pretty low. I'll be honest, I've never seen anything under 100 before. And this percent trucks number, there's some kind of convoluted formula the DOT uses to arrive at that. But the higher these numbers are, the more quote unquote valuable this bridge is. Detour, they max it out at 99 because effectively there is no detour. And we've stated that several times in the application. It's currently posted for 15 tons, and I think has been that way since the earlier mid 90s from what I'm gathering from Mike and CJ and everybody. Hydraulic vulnerability rating. I believe this is on scale 1 to 5. So they're saying it's not that hydraulically vulnerable. I'd have to agree. I think it would take a really big flood event for that bridge to get washed out, which is basically kind of what that is evaluating. Fracture critical. It's a really old design. Yes, it is fracture critical. There's really only 2 girders that carry the weight of this bridge. Therefore, if one of them becomes deficient, your entire bridge is shot. New designs are multi-girder steel bridge. Usually you see 5 girders a lot. That's just to allow some redundancy. So if one girder gets a rust hole in it in 20 years, your bridge will still work. So this bridge is fracture critical due to its design. Therefore, we get a little bit more consideration on that. 1900, that's give or take. No record plans exist for this bridge, so it's anyone's best guess. We just know it's really old. Local bridge priority index, this LBPI number, that's a 0 to 1. The closer you are to 1, the higher priority it is in the state size for this to get replaced. We are a hair below the middle, which isn't good. It's not bad either though. But generally that 0.3 to 0.4 range is where you're going to get some serious looks for funding, I think. The general recommendation of a bridge, this is 1 to 7 scale. I think it says that down here. We're at a 4. In my experience, when a bridge gets down to 3 or 4, you're thinking about serious rehab or replacement. Their recommendation is a general rehab, which I don't know why that's there, given this is a fracture critical bridge. Typically they phase those out. So I really have no idea. That might be something to add at some point in this application, that footnote. But this is this form, some of it is self-generating, so you input a few things and it pulls from a database. So And this is the bridge inspection report. This is a long one. I won't go over the whole thing, but basically these comments are all for structural deficiencies. So you can see as I scroll down here, there's lots of them. And then the pictures here illustrate that. Another thing I think we got going for us is this does carry water to the, I don't know, 7, 8 residences down there, whatever there are. So if the bridge goes out, there's probably a good chance the water main goes out and these people are left completely without water too. So that's one of those secondary factors that they're going to look at and give special consideration to. Lots of cracked welds, lots of rust, that kind of thing, typical of an old bridge. Yeah, this is a long one. You can tell by the length what kind of shape your bridge is in. Detour map location, we all know where it is. This is our estimate worksheet. I took this directly off the DOT website. It's what they use for preliminary cost evaluation. There's a bunch of backup historical data on there too. Donnie and I sat down one day and looked at similar bridge projects going back 4, 5, 6 years on there. In my mind, this falls in line with those. It's a pretty canned thing. You put in the structure type and abutment type you're looking at, which I've assumed for this exercise, I've assumed a multi-girder steel bridge with a concrete deck, just like Ludlowville Road is now. In my mind, I'm envisioning like a mirror image of that there. So for estimating purposes, that's kind of what I assumed. And then there's some detailed stuff in here about demoing the existing bridge. I threw in 150 grand for the detour. I have some money in here for inflation, which I might bump up because part of my function at TG Miller is cost estimating and stuff. And all my materials guys are telling me that things are going nuts right now. Stuff like that. And we threw a contingency on here of 15% just because it doesn't take many things to go wrong during design or construction to eat up $186,000. Sounds like a lot of money. In reality, it doesn't go that far. And then this is a preliminary schedule here. I kind of glanced over it earlier, but basically we're taking all the time we can because 2 years sounds like a lot. And I think you'll find that it's not as long a time as it sounds. I did a short EAF. Part of this will be seeker, environmental things. I believe there will be some environmental stuff. This state, it feels like every couple of years comes out with some kind of new endangered species that nobody knew existed that we all have to be aware of. It was the long-eared bat or something. It's some kind of mussel now. I put some money in there for that. Yeah. Shippo, all these squares here. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the difference between the red and the black, but I know they're important, and I know there's none close enough to our bridge, I think, to affect it. But they just want to see that. And Donnie and I are going to be looking closer at hydraulics of this, but this is a program called StreamStats. I think the USGS manufactures this program, and it basically allows you to determine all your different flows and engineering stuff that we'll need to do a hydraulic evaluation of this. And I'll be honest, it takes a lot of time and effort to do that. And we ran out of time before the draft application, but we did submit the stream stats to show them that we do have our peak flows calculated. And Donnie and I are going to be working, I think, probably tomorrow morning, trying to model this bridge on our hydraulic software and see where we're at with this flow. That might change things a little because depending on what we see, we might have to lengthen the span a little bit to let some more water downstream. But this bridge, I think, is 24, 27 feet off the water. So it's definitely high enough, and I believe it's an 80-foot span bearing to bearing. So there is a huge hydraulic opening here. I'm not picturing anything catastrophic happening during this model that would make that span have to significantly increase and up the cost, but you never know. And this is probably an important part too. Let me zoom out a little here so you can see the whole thing. This is all the property owners that surround the bridge, and I've kind of sketched in. Again, this is highly conceptual at this point. This is just frankly my best guess. But I've sketched in kind of where a temporary structure will want to go. It will want to go downstream somewhere. And at this point, we just kind of have to ensure that we're comfortable with the fact that it will be on Tara and Brandon Kane's property in yellow here, and Steve and Diane Lauzon. How do you say that? I think I got it right. They own these two slivers of properties on the Mill Street side, and then Tara and Brandon Kane own this portion here along the Doug Road side, which I'm envisioning is where some sort of detour structure will have to go. So they will be key factors in how well we score, because at the end of the day, they gotta say, yes, we support this bridge, and yes, we'll sign a temporary easement and be incredibly inconvenienced for a summer. And I think CJ and Joe and have been working on getting letters of support from residents down here, which will be a key part of this application, because the state wants basically shovel-ready projects here. They want to know that you're not going to get hung up for 2 years in right-of-way acquisitions as part of this. So if we can get these two property owners, Kane and Lauzon, to give us a letter of support, that'll be a big part of this. We'll show the state that, yeah, everyone's on board here. And the other property owners won't hurt either. You never know what's going to come up during design and construction where you may need a sliver of land here or there. So, and that's about all of it. And we are going to submit a letter on your behalf saying that we've reviewed this. You get bonus points for that too. So I think that's about all I got.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jim.
No problem.
And very comprehensive overview. Just to kind of chime in a little bit in terms of the public outreach we've done, we've both emailed and sent physical paper letters to every address, as well as the Mill Street addresses that Jim and those owners that Jim mentioned, just to essentially encourage them to support the project as much as we can. And I think we've got at least 1 or 2 letters back, along with some questions. So, and Joe has been doing a lot of outreach. So we're doing our best to coordinate, and big thanks to Highway, of course, and TG Miller for their support of this project.
I'll just add that I've been going door to door and talking to people out there, and there's been a lot of support. There's a little bit of concern about it being a 2-lane bridge, but I think people are understanding that that's kind of the minimum that's going to get built. Steve has indicated that he's quite willing to give an easement over his property. And Brandon's been out of town for the past couple of weeks, so I haven't been able to get in touch with him, but I'm still working on getting in touch with him and should talk to him hopefully this week.
Yeah. Can I ask, do you have a feel for why the opposition to 2-lane?
Because it's a narrow road, and the feeling is it's going to speed up traffic. People are going to turn around and try to go down that road quickly and discover there's nowhere they can go. And it's a quiet little neighborhood. This huge bridge will then have to squeeze traffic down, which would require more right of way to be taken away from somebody on that corner. And I think people kind of like the small aspect of the neighborhood. That's what drew them there. And a big bridge kind of takes away from that.
I don't know. It's kind of, I haven't been able to determine exact dimensions of right of way there, but I think you could fit a bridge in there. There's things you can do to mitigate the amount of footprint you're taking up with the bridge. So I wouldn't be too scared of someone's entire front yard being taken away or something like that. But yeah, I could see the concern. It's a new thing down there, so.
Yeah, and I think they're also concerned about it encouraging traffic driving down a road that doesn't get much traffic now and doesn't need to get any additional traffic.
Yeah. I think the fact that I think putting a single lane bridge there would be very hard to convince the state to do. You have a single lane bridge there now, and it works because it's worked for 100 years. It's had to work for 100 years. Typically, the more standardized of a structure you can put back, the more it benefits you. Less hoops to jump through, less dealing with the state, less time in review, less scrutiny, things like that, little fringe benefits of putting in a standard structure. So I can understand the concern, but it's going to create more of a headache, possibly like a narrower bridge, I would see, but.
Yeah, I also know that a lot of people are concerned that they can't get construction vehicles easily across there. The garbage is not going across. Everyone has to carry their garbage out to Mill Street. Emergency vehicles, snow plowing, all that sort of stuff is highly concerned by everybody I've talked to so far. So they definitely want a replacement bridge. And I've talked to most of the people on Doug Road. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you so much. Not sure if town board members have any additional questions, but happy to try to answer.
I have a few, but I'll wait for the other board members to come first if they have any questions. Doug, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
Rowan?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Andre?
Can you hear me? I was just wondering if you got a speaker when you replaced the bridge in Ludlowville going over 7th Street, the one that was just.
I caught every third word about.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Okay.
Is that better?
No.
Is that better? Yes, that's better. I was wondering if we got a grant from the state for the bridge that was recently put up over 7th Street in one.
I'm not sure the funding for that bridge. I can't remember if John disclosed that when we met with him before.
I'm pretty sure that was state money because that was pushing the design to a larger bridge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the state has several programs, so it might not have been Bridge New York. It could have been TIP or STIP or one of those acronyms.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
You got thumbs up across the board.
Good. So this cost of the bridge, are we planning for a grant? Is that what we're doing for this? And we have a specific amount or a vague amount, or what's the process going forward? If you can walk me through that, Jim. Or CJ.
Yeah, I can do that. So the part we're focused on right now is the application for funding and securing effectively a grant from the state. If we do get awarded this project, there's a lot of steps to go through. You're going to first have to come up with a funding agreement with the state that says, yes, we will accept this money, we will put it in this account, we will distribute it this way, things of that nature, things that frankly attorneys deal with. I know it exists. Beyond that, I know I don't have to handle it. After you get a funding agreement with the state, you'll have to form some kind of committee, usually one or two people in the highway department, one or two board members, something like that, something that makes sense for you guys. And you will solicit requests for proposals from engineering firms. And then somehow you'll have to come up with a scoring system for this panel of people to select an engineer. And then you'll have to hammer out a contract with your engineer. And then once you get them on board and willing to take this project on, you'll go through scoping, which is basically trying to get an idea of everything that this project encompasses and all the services that your engineer is going to provide for you. And with that, all the services and legwork that the town will have to take on. And then you're into preliminary design, which is basically survey, hydraulics, hydrology. You're starting to get into the nuts and bolts and lay out a plan for the project. And then you'll get into right away, which is basically your engineer will select a firm, and there are specialized firms out there that only do right away things. RK Height jumps to mind. They will reach out to the property owners and say, yeah, here's our preliminary plan. We're going to have to take a 3-foot sliver of your front yard and we're going to have to put this there. Whatever the case may be, your right away firm will negotiate with them and hammer out contracts and easements and all that stuff. Then final design will start once you have all your easements and stuff hammered out. They're going to start calculating what size your bridge beam is going to be, what your rebar and your deck is going to look like. What's that?
I got the whole process. It's good. I think for us, we need to get going first on the grant. For the grant to dictate what we have to do in the future to facilitate. So that was great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I have no more questions at this time. Okay, so CJ, what else do we need from the board for tonight?
Nothing, no action from the board. This was just meant as an overview and just to kind of let you know where this project stood and that it's obviously in its very early infancy stages, but that we are doing our best to acquire money to be able to fix it up because we know it's a priority for highway, fire, and residents.
So do we have any confirmation from the county in writing or anything for the 5% local match?
That's a really good question. I actually, just yesterday I attended the Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council Planning Committee meeting as usual. And we did actually discuss the distribution of a flow chart so that we could understand when we had to actually show up to the county's infrastructure and transportation committee meeting to make sure that perhaps you're might be referencing the concern over maybe the Freeze Road Bridge and, saying, oh, well, we, not going to chip in that 5%. And that was a kind of strange little fricassee there. And so I think it's there's other municipalities applying for this. And so I think the county will provide to us essentially like a flow chart of all the steps we'll need to do, including what we need to do to secure that 5% commitment from the county. So yes, I don't anticipate that the town would be on the hook for it. We're essentially, doing, we're helping, we're helping the county. The county will help us by, providing that 5% match.
So worst case scenario, the taxpayers in the town of Lansing would be on the hook for $112,132.80. Worst case scenario.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm good.
Thanks,
Okay,
Jim. Appreciate you.
thanks, Jim.
No problem.
Nothing else, we'll move on. Now we'll go to the privilege of the floor. Does anyone want to exercise the privilege of the floor here? No? How about in the waiting room? CJ, is anyone there?
We do have one person, I'll admit.
Okay, the privilege of the floor, good. We'll circle back, Larry, if you want to talk. Is anyone there for privilege of the floor? I'll take it as a no.
Well, I see their video, but I don't know that anyone is home, so.
Okay. So Larry, do you want to say something for privilege of the floor?
Yes, please.
Okay, did you already sign in? Okay, great, thank you. You have up to 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. My name is Larry Beck. I've lived on Doug Road for 40 years and seen 3 closings of that bridge. And at one point, my 35-year-old had to get his diapers delivered by hand across a walk bridge. There's a long history here. And it seems like we're dealing with a tale of 3 municipalities, New York State, Tompkins County, and town of Ithaca, or excuse me, Lansing. And there's some kind of cognitive dissonance here about the 2-lane bridge and 1-lane bridge. We don't need a 2-lane bridge. There's a 1-lane bridge on the north side of this bridge, and there's nowhere to go. Doug Road washed out in 1935 in a flood. Famous flood, 4 people died down in Myers during that flood. So that road hasn't been there since 1935. There's nowhere it's going to go. I own part of that road, or part of what was the road going up that hill. It was literally dug on the side of the hill, and to build a road in there in the future makes building a new bridge laughably inexpensive. So there's no way that we're going to go any further than 100 yards of Doug Road existing now. At one point, it was after the last correction on the bridge or reconstruction, the sign said 7.5-ton bridge. I asked a septic pump to come and pump out a septic system. He got across the bridge and just panicked and says, "I can't do this. This is a 7.5-ton bridge. I'm not even allowed to cross it." And he left me with no pump septic. Called the county, and soon after, a 15-ton sign went on the bridge. So what we need, I feel, is to update that bridge to a regular standard so that wheel trucks, fire engines can get across, service us, have that road serviced. It hasn't been serviced except for, the road hasn't been serviced except for potholes, which I call about every year. They just can't do it because they can't get across a 15-ton bridge. So we want the bridge improved. All the neighbors agree about that. We want the safety of actually having a fire truck come across the bridge and put out a fire if that bridge happened. So I'm behind getting a new bridge, but it's not rational to put a 2-lane bridge in there. And I understand New York State wants to build a 2-lane bridge, but I measured the bridge. It's 11.5 feet currently. The new bridge on Ludlow Road is 29 feet wide, 2 lanes. So you're gonna have a two-lane bridge there, and one of them's not gonna be usable. Or if it's usable, it's just gonna be a diversion to get across in one direction. So this is a tough issue to resolve, and I understand, but a two-lane bridge doesn't make much sense, and a one-lane bridge as it exists doesn't make any sense. It's not safe. We're not getting the services that we deserve as taxpayers. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Good to see you. Okay, anyone else? Sure. Did you sign it also?
I did.
Okay, and just state your name and go from there.
My name is Steve Lawson. My wife and I own 26 Mill Street, which is the house right on the bridge. And I think I would like to advocate for something being done. I know that all of our neighbors over there, without being able to use construction vehicles, emergency vehicles, the trash and recycling trucks can't cross over. So something does need to be done to take care of all those folks across the street, across the bridge. Like Larry, I understand that it would take more effort to make the width of the new bridge non-standard, to make it narrow, but I think it's an effort that needs to be taken. Having a wide bridge, like the new one that you see that crosses Salmon Creek, having a bridge that wide going to a very narrow road that would be very difficult to enlarge, that services 12 homes, just seems like kind of a bridge to nowhere project. So I understand it's going to be more difficult, but I think we support a new bridge project, but we would advocate that we should take the time and the effort to make it the right width that's appropriate to the neighborhood. Also, the bridge is very close to the corner of our house, and we would advocate that it does have to become wider, that the center line of the bridge move downstream so that the upstream rail of the bridge does not go any further upstream, that we maintain the distance. It's very, very tight. And we own the property from the bridge all the way down to the wall of that house. And that's a sliver of land that has no use to us, would be very agreeable to the town. Using that land, we are happy to have it be the town's land. But our only requirement would be that if the bridge does have to get wider, that it move downstream, not up. But beyond that, if we don't get this grant, I would encourage the town board and the county to still work towards a solution, because the folks on the other side of that bridge are not being protected, not being served the way they should. So if the state can't chip in to build this bridge, then we need to find some other way, somehow, the way the county rebuilt Red Bridge out by the Bride Gun Club, whatever needs to be done, but something does need to be done to take care of the folks on the other side of the bridge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no one else here. CJ, anyone else you see in the waiting room?
Nope, I don't think so. There's still this person labeled owner here, so I'll try them one more time and see if they're there. Nope, still not home.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. They're appreciated. Let's move on then to the next one would be the Lansing Community Library Report, which is in your packet. And then we have the Lansing Youth Service Report from Megan Lyons, which is also in your packet. And then we have number 8, which is Mike Sigler, which will be here in a moment. So Mike, do you want to make a couple comments also? Because I know you'll be brief, that way you can go talk to these gentlemen again real fast.
Well, I can tell them right now, because I
Thank
can
you.
tell you guys all at the same time. Yeah, the Bridge New York, we're actually talking about that right now at the county, and we're going to put together a resolution that basically how we're going to pay like our share of that. Because the Bridge New York is actually great for us as the county. It saves us quite a bit of money. I mean, we're paying 5% instead of paying 80% of the bridge cost. I will say the Bridge New York is pretty flexible. Part of what I was going to tell them was the reason the Freeze Road Bridge, the reason the Freeze Road Bridge, the reason the Freeze Road Bridge is actually built that way is because the county is able to spread it out over 7 years. So went with this funding source was they didn't want a 2-lane bridge there. They wanted Freeze Road to remain a 1-lane bridge. And if you know where Freeze Road is, it's connects Varna to, I don't know, points north, I guess. Because you gotta go down the hill, you go down Cornell Orchards or whatever, Cornell Lane is there. And you cross the creek there. And yeah, you can see if that was a 2-lane bridge, yeah, a lot of people probably would cut through there to go to Cornell. So they really wanted that to remain a 1-lane bridge. If that's county money, we were kind of like, listen, man, it's going to be a 2-lane bridge because that's the model we go with. And we are not as flexible as this Bridge New York program apparently is, more flexible. So that's just giving you a heads up. Use that information for what you will. But that's exactly why they went with this funding source, was that kind of flexibility. And any of the leadership, frankly, in Dryden can kind of take you through that. And just how that funding was used. So anyway, that's where we are with that. And we are, I think we did commit to paying that 5%. It's a huge savings for the county. I mean, it's kind of, and we did another project in Dryden. And we do know about the Lansing Bridge project coming up, and there's another one I think in Newfield. So we have like 4 on the board that I don't foresee why the county's not going to ship it. So there, so I guess I don't know if it's new information, but that's the information I have on it. I do want to thank you for having me again. It's just been a big day. This mask-free thing, I don't even know what to do with it. So we are pretty happy. I think that the mask mandate is lifted. Vaccinated people. County, we're still working on how to deal with that at county offices. I know you guys are too. I did see the sign out front. So that's exciting. I do expect that debate to hinge on kind of whether employees are going to be vaccinated or not. I'm watching the time. I only had 2 minutes to finish here. 7:30. That was cool.
That was for the whole meeting.
I know. I can't help with that. I also expect us to return to in-person meetings probably next month, actually, for the county legislature. I don't see why we wouldn't. I'll probably end up asking again for the emergency to be lifted. I don't want to live in a constant state of emergency. I don't think we're in an emergency any longer. I think we dealt with the emergency. We're in a maintenance issue now. So I'll be asking for that. And I'm hoping that mask and guidance for children will be revised shortly. That'll come from the feds, though, and then that'll filter down to the state, and that'll filter down to us. So, I think the science shows maybe that should be a revision. We'll wait and see what the CDC does. Anyway, we are working on how to wind down the COVID Emergency Response Center. Thankfully, it was so successful. We were happy about that. I want to thank everyone that was on that team, the administration of the county. They really did save lives along with the medical center and along with you folks. I mean, our county did better in the state than I think almost anybody. I think we were the top state on how to deal with people getting vaccinated and things like that. So we were definitely at the forefront on how to deal with this pandemic. Last night's meeting was Jason's last. Jason Molina, who is leaving, as you know, and we saw him. She's already taken the reins of the administration. So I'll be reporting on what Lisa does going forward. We did vote to establish the Community Justice Center last night. That's going to be implementing our public safety plans. As you know, I'm against that almost $200,000 expenditure. I just think the sheriff should be doing this, and not creating a whole other wing in the administration to do it. The elected sheriff, I believe, is the one that has the authority to do this. So that's the direction I would go with, and I'm going to stick to that. There were 2 other resolutions. One was calling for us to reform civil service when it comes to hiring police. I personally believe that this should pertain to all civil service, not just police. I voted for this though, because you do have to start someplace, and might as well start with police. That's fine by me, but I do think that should branch out to all civil service. I mean, if we want a diverse workforce, why not all of civil service and not just police? We had another one, and we voted about discipline for police, and I voted against that just because it's just too broad. I mean, you need the union buy-ins on that, and it just didn't seem like we had talked to, frankly, enough people on how we are going to revise discipline in police. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be done, but this, the resolution that came forward didn't have any specifics in it, so. The Tompkins County Legislature passed resolution 12-2 with myself and McKenna in the Senate about the New York Health Act. This will supposedly give healthcare, will give single payer, basically, healthcare in New York State. I came forward with a different resolution. I mean, we've tried to do this for 15 years. We put forward 5 resolutions to try to get this passed. Maybe it'll get passed now. Democrats do control the Senate and the Assembly, but they have for a few years now, and it hasn't passed through. And now they have supermajorities. So this would be the year where they do it. The head of the Senate pulled it out of the Health Committee, and nobody knows why. So I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be like, even though people say they're for it, it doesn't seem like it moves forward. My suggestion I put forward is a different resolution. I said, why don't we just take care of cancer? How about the state says, listen, we're going to pay for cancer. You get cancer in New York State, we're going to pay for that. I said this because it's a real number. It's $11 billion. 110,000 people in New York State get diagnosed with cancer every year, and it costs about $100,000 to treat each person. All right, that's a number, 11 billion, which is a big number, but you know, it's a knowable number. And frankly, our budget's pretty huge in New York State. So I think that's something we can do. We can do it very quickly, and frankly, gives us a great negotiating tools with the healthcare insurers to say, listen, we're going to take over this $11 billion. What are you going to give us? You're going to give us lower premiums, and also you don't have that vagary of how much it's going to cost every year. That's off your books. We're going to take it. Great, good negotiating tool for us. So that's what I put forward, and we'll see. You know, hopefully, you know, if the other thing doesn't go anywhere in 3 years, then we'll circle back and we'll say, yeah, why don't we go forward with the cancer? So we'll see. That was about it. Sorry. All right. So, if you have any questions, can I?
Any questions for Mike?
And so
No, I don't.
Well, I want to congratulate Disease Events, and I want to congratulate Aaron Thompson.
Yes.
There you go. Let's get one. Aaron Thompson on being members of the school board now. That's very exciting for us. And congratulations on the school budget being passed. Big news for us. That's it. Thanks.
That's it.
All right. Good afternoon.
Well, you guys want to talk?
Well, I think I just told them.
Now, number 9 in our packet is Parks and Recreation Report by Terrell.
Hold on, I gotta get the camera.
Okay.
I don't know if I can get it that far. No,
Want to sit over here?
I can't get it that far.
Uh-oh.
I'm going around the horn. Hold on.
Here we go.
Nope.
How about you move? Or we can move the building over.
In an effort to save time, I am not gonna have any comments tonight, other than we are fully rolling with our programs and outdoor activities.
You're bursting at the
Thank you
seams.
and good evening.
You're bursting at the seams. Pavilions are stuffed, championship stuffed, boats are stuffed,
Stuffed.
everything's stuffed. Wonderful. And a lot of kids are out there tonight as I drive around. Good. So agenda number 10 is a highway report. Cricket. Hi there. Oh,
You're
on mute.
muted.
You're on mute. my friend.
Muted.
Unmute. There we go. How's that? So
Perfect.
Mikey obviously submitted our report for the month to kind of tell what's going on. Obviously, a couple things on the agenda as far as the resolutions for kind of filling some space at the town with employees. And other than that, I guess I don't have a whole lot. How's that?
Perfect. Any questions for Cricket?
Yeah, I'd just like to, you sent out a message about a piece of equipment that you would like to purchase instead of leasing over time. And I'm just wondering how this kind of affects the budget in terms of long-term how much that's going to increase the highway budget and how we can fit that in. Because I know we've done several pieces of equipment, and I'm wondering, is there other ones that we're thinking about purchasing as well, and how that would all work?
Right. So where we're at with on that, Joe, is we obviously rent this equipment to do these projects with, on a yearly basis. The couple pieces we've been renting for the last couple of years, in a benefit to the taxpayers, we're looking at, if we were to do the lease payment option on them, because with the projects we do for the next year or two here yet with them, on that payment, actually, if we lease the stuff, or if we did the lease, to purchase payment on that, we would actually save the money. But at the end of 3 years, we'd actually own the equipment, and then we would get another, say, like 12 years out of it. So I think that would be, beneficial in that aspect. We keep doing these projects and we constantly rent this equipment, no different than the loader that we do. I just think it's the aspect of saving that money in the long run and actually owning the equipment. So.
And you foresee us needing to use this equipment for the next couple of years as well?
Yeah. So, like the projects we got going, like we've got water district number 5 going here, starting here, hopefully next week. We're going to rent that for another couple months for that project. We use it for cross culverts and a lot of other things. And with that being said, if we look at the aspect of what we pay for a monthly lease and have no skin in the game, so to speak, for the money that we put into it, we bring it back out as renting the stuff. But to continue to use it for the projects, we would, obviously, paying that money in a lease and owning it at the end of 3 years would continue to, benefit the taxpayers versus continue to rent it. So.
And what does this machine do?
So one's an excavator, one's a dozer. So, we've been renting this stuff for 2 years now. And if we look at the lease payments versus the rental payments, it would actually be a little less money. But there again, at the end of 3 years, we would own it and then get the benefit of, the next 10 or 12 years of actually having the equipment and not actually costing us any money, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Anything to add, Mikey? Still on mute.
There we go. Am I good to go now? No, Cricket's right on point. It's everything I put in the email, leasing versus renting. And I think there's a savings there, like I said in the email, to the taxpayers, definitely. So right on point.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, let me give a little more background. This came up, by the way. This is when the salesman walks into the office at the highway department and says, you know what? This is now available to lease to own. Okay, this is what was not available last year or the year before. So it's my understanding this was a new policy that just came across their desk. And you got two things there, which is the excavator, which the estimate was maybe 10 to 12 years, and the bulldozer was 15 years left on it. I think after you pay it off, or maybe just total right now, we're paying $6,610 a month. Correct me, gentlemen, if I'm wrong with this. If we continue this over 10 years, which is what these things would last, that would cost us $793,200. We pay off the 178. To your point, you asked me about taxpayer savings. We'll save the taxpayers over 10 years $615,200. Does that mean we take part of that and sock it away in a reserve for next time when the next lease rolls around, or we put it in our coffers? I don't know. Those are things we can discuss. The other thing is that the estimate is this is going to come out of road maintenance, which is the DB fund, which is sales tax, and it also come out of the water fund, the consolidated water district. So it's going to be a 50-50. because the excavator and the bulldozer, that's what it's used for. There's no snow plowing in this at all, so there's no DA funds. I'm trying to be as simple as I can, but I'm in the weeds a little bit here, but I think it's important that these gentlemen are always looking for savings and value, and I think that these numbers demonstrate it when you can save $615,200 over 10 years for them. That's a really good grade all. We don't need one, because we got one of those too. Anyways, actually, so I think it was great that they came to us. Let me just go a little deeper though. We talk about equipment, is that what we're doing now is we're having a concern that when we put in our budget that we're going to buy, for instance, Joe or Brown, like a big truck, right? We were looking at maybe 14 months out. Now, Mikey, what is it, 16, 18 months out? Right, so you're looking at something in the budget for 2022. We're not going to get it to probably the second half of 2023. So I'm just planting seeds to come up with a strategy to maybe project us how you pre-order it. And I don't know what the final detail of this is. I'm just sharing with the board right now how we can come up with a plan to maybe pre-order these things and not pay for them for a year and a half when the bill comes due. But that's food for thought that we can talk about later. But it's something that if we order it right now, it'd be, like I said, 14 to 16 months out. That's just food for thought. So is there something you need from us if our board is in agreement to pursue this? Is that in this authorization here going forward? Do we have a resolution going forward?
No, that was for next month. I didn't want to burden Debbie with that, you know. It was short notice, like I said. The salesman came in and talked to Cricket and I, so it's been a busy week for us, but we did our best to get the information out, you know, to you all to start.
Do you need I'm sorry, Mikey, do you need a commitment from us tonight so that you can go ahead to the salesman and say, we want to lock in on this now?
Yeah,
so
that would help. Sure. Cricket and I can call Scott McQuay at Case Equipment and say, you know, our board is in support of this, and they'll authorize it for the June meeting.
Because if you go over the 3-year plan, we're going to basically kick in, what is it here? My notes are here. It's like a down payment of $21,698, which leaves, looks like for 3 years, $55,587.80. I'm kind of surprised the 4-year plan is a little different, but so be it. So anyways, maybe we do need a resolution tonight, and you can buy, Mrs. Munson, the chocolates next week, okay? No chocolates, okay. But if we need some sort of resolution, I mean, just besides a verbal commitment, I don't know what the board wants to do, but I want to be able to get in front of this now so that we can have the highway department be armed to go ahead and lock this deal down now.
I would like to see a resolution written with some time to say, here's how much is coming out of this fund, here's how much coming out of that fund. And rather than trying to write something on the fly, I'd like to give the highway department, you know, some time to actually put it together properly. I'd even be willing to meet in between the 2 meetings if there's some kind of deadline, but I'm not hearing that this offer is going away next week. And I think if we rush it, we're going to make mistakes on numbers, and I'd rather, you know, have it done with time and thoughtful.
My only concern is this time sensitive? If this is not time sensitive, and we're all in agreement to move forward on this, then that's something that can probably wait with thorough discussion back and forth, so we can have it on our agenda for next month. So you guys.
Yeah,
tell
I
me.
mean,
Go ahead, Rick.
so Ed, I don't disagree with Joe. I think if we can have some discussion over the next month about this and maybe put it on next month's agenda, I think we're not going to lose the opportunity on it. And I think, you know, it's a good benefit to the taxpayers. So.
As long as it's not time sensitive. And, where there's
Right. Well, no, I think if we can put something together over the next month, I think we'd be in good shape. So absolutely.
Okay, your call. Good. Anything else from the highway besides the fact that the one door looks like the one driveway is open again, right, for the highway barns? Things are good? Good. Okay.
And I just wanted a quick clarification question. My understanding is the reason that we're looking at this now and haven't before is that it wasn't offered before, but it's a great deal and it's being offered now. Is that correct?
Yeah, Brown, it was not offered before. Like Cricket said, we've been leasing this equipment for 2 years at a cost of, roughly $6,000 some dollars per month for both pieces of equipment. The
Yep.
salesman had come in and gave us that offer. I think the offer
Got
that
it.
is on the table is solid through June. So I think
Okay, great.
Cricket's right. We'd have enough time to revisit this, and the two funds, it's going to be cut and dry how to split it up. So shouldn't be an issue.
Great. Thanks, Lanky.
Yep.
I would just like to ask if there's been an update on what's happening with the road between Ludlowville and the school. I know I've had lots of people in Ludlowville ask me, is that road going to reopen? What's happening with it?
Yeah, Joe. We're still working with TG Miller. Obviously, I've been on the phone, and Cricket and I've been emailing Dondi. It's a slow process. As soon as we have information, we'll gladly share it. So
Okay, thank
want to
you.
make sure the figures are right. It's a big project.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else from any board members? Okay. Item 11 on the agenda, CJ. The planning report.
Hey, everybody. So we've been busy. The good news is that we got a host of really great applicants for both positions, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about that in executive session because it's relative to personnel matters, but I'm really excited about the folks we're hoping to bring on board. Not sure if there's questions about anything specific, but obviously you can see we're getting a pretty good swath of development review applications. Our planning board agenda has hit a new record length, so people are very much interested in developing projects in the town, big and small. So, any specific questions, I'm happy to answer. Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, I was kind of concerned at the April 26th meeting and kind of confused when Marabito basically said that they didn't think they actually had to submit a site plan and go through site plan approval to get their project approved. And could you go into what's going on there a little bit? Because that I've never heard an applicant act like that before.
Sure. So the initial phase, so just to back up a little for folks who might be listening in, I believe project that Joe is speaking about is the, as listed on the report here, I think we have it as the Lansing Propane Petroleum Storage and Distribution Facility, Phase 2. So that's presented by Wayne Matson, engineer as applicant on behalf of Marabito Holdings. So the intention of the project is Phase 1 of the project was the installation of essentially a large, I think it's 30,000 gallon propane tank there on the site at Town Barn Road. The Phase 2 of the proposal is to install three, I think it's 30,000 or maybe it's 50,000. I can't recall. I'll look at the materials to be sure. Petroleum bulk storage tanks. So that's a different type of fuel on the site. And so as part of the review, the town had asked for some projects of different scales or magnitudes. Sometimes the town asks for something called the developer's agreement. So it's kind of like an escrow to say, hey, if we have legal and engineering costs that the town takes on as part of reviewing your project, you'll reimburse the town for that. So they had an agreement from Phase 1 of the project. And I reached out to the applicants and I said, hey, you submitted a new application. Would you like to submit a new developer's agreement? And they concurred, and they actually sent this along. The council from Marabito sent this, and we received an escrow deposit, within a few days. So I'm not sure exactly. It could have been maybe a concern about the town retaining third-party fire protection consulting engineering services. So the one as you may recall, Joe, I know you attend a lot of the meetings, but for others who don't, the we, make a practice of engaging, of course, with other departments in the town, and fire department expressed some concerns, about the project. And so, naturally, we reach out to our town's engineers, and they recommended we actually seek a third party consulting service that has a specialty in this type of review. So, TG Miller, of course, is civil and land surveying, and they do a whole suite of services. Of course, as you see, based on tonight, they do, kind of everything. But given that this is a very specialized skill set within engineering, they did recommend a third party, as did attorney for the town. So the short of the long is we're essentially just seeking to recover the cost of that as part of site plan review. It's really not an unusual request. So.
Well, that part I'm fine with. What I'm confused with is, the statement from Morabido's engineer, in which he specifically said that the planning board shouldn't be looking at anything but whether this is an acceptable use. They seem to feel like they didn't have to submit full site plans. They didn't understand why the board was actually interested in where things were being put where. It was a very odd conversation at that meeting.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not the only one who thought that was very odd, and I'm not understanding, have they submitted a full site plan yet?
No, applicants have not submitted the site plan, a full plan set as requested. However, my understanding is applicants are looking to submit some updated plans soon. So hopefully we'll be receiving those. And of course, they'll be posted to planning board submittals on the website where everyone can see them, as well as distributed to the planning board as well. So.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
And questions from the board members? Okay, thank you.
Oh, and I got one more thing. The CFA is back. The CFA is back, everybody. So yes, the Mikey's giving the thumbs up too. So I want to let you know that my intention is, and I've spoken to Pat about this as well, we're going to resubmit for Myers based on the new plan from MJ and Place Alliance, which is really fabulous. And I'll of course let him speak to that, but I think he's pretty delighted with the new master plan for Myers Park through the it'd be the Environmental Protection Fund. And we're going to go for the vac truck. So Highway Department has expressed a longstanding desire to be able to have a vacuum truck. It's fairly expensive and very specific piece of equipment. They can, of course, go into the details. I'm just here to try to win the money. And Dondi and Dave Herrick from TG Miller, of course, will be helping us assemble that application. And the good news is, we probably will hit all the high marks on that application. That's about a $400,000 piece of equipment. We'd be anticipated, our share would be 25%. I think it may be a little more now. I'll check and see what the match percentages are. But given that the new TMDL, or total maximum daily load report, is now out from the DEC, and of course there's a push to obviously address some of the nutrient loading. This could be a wonderful opportunity, and I think we'll score quite highly. And I think both applications, I think they're largely assembled, and we have a lot of the data from Tompkins County Soil and Water to be able to go for the vac truck too. Dave Herrick and I and Dondi will have to do a little bit of work rounding up some data for the vac truck, but we've been planning these grant applications for years. And of course, as you know, last year, the CFA was suspended because of COVID, but now it's back, and we're really motivated to get these two projects fully funded. So expect more on that in the June and July. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Item 12, engineers report. Move on to 13, the Ag Committee report. And now we go to the consent agenda.
Okay, so usually you have the titles of the motions and the resolutions read by town board members, and then after all those are read, we'll have the first and second motions and then roll call.
Okay. Joe, you want to do the first three?
Motion authorizing supervisor to sign Lansing Youth Commission Program Agreement for 2021 with Cornell Cooperative Extension. Motion authorizing stormwater operating management and reporting agreement for Lock 34 DNYP LLC, Dollar General. And motion to approve amended 503 emergency situations of the employee handbook.
Okay, thank you. Brown, you want to do the next three? Please, D, yeah.
Sure. D is motion to schedule public hearing to consider special use permit application at 320 Peruville Road. E is resolution upgrading information aid in Parks and Recreation Office. F is resolution authorizing highway superintendent to hire information aid, heavy equipment mechanic, motor equipment operator, automotive mechanic assistant, and part-time employee.
Thank you. Andra, you want to do the last three, please?
G, resolution hiring full-time labor for Parks and Recreation for the town of Lansing. H, resolution approving 2021 annual stormwater report. And I, approve audit and budget modifications and supervisor's report.
So who wants to make the motion?
I'll move it.
I'll
There's a
second.
Okay, Doug seconds it. Mrs. Benson?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Bronwyn Losi,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine,
Yes. Agenda item 15, motion authorizing developers agreement for Maravido Holdings Incorporated site plan project. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move it.
There's a second?
what was it, Doug? I can't.
It was
I
Doug Day.
can't see.
Yeah, Doug Day moved it.
I'll second it.
And I've been seconded. Any further discussion?
I just want to make sure that it's clear that they're going to go through, that they are clear that they're actually going to go through a site plan review, because from their comments at the 28th meeting, it seemed like they didn't want to go through a site plan review.
CJ, you want to speak to this?
I know we're clear. I want to make sure they're clear that they're going through a site plan.
Okay, do you want to put language in the resolution that states that? Since they're not here tonight to confirm that.
Well, I was just gonna say,
If they don't submit a site plan, then we don't give them a site.
Kind of works that way, doesn't it?
right, I mean,
They gotta submit it.
And they refuse to do it, or if there are certain things you want to require, and they refuse to do it, then guess what? It doesn't happen.
Let's hear from Guy.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, I didn't chime in earlier, but Joe, I think you stated in very calm and considered terms what I heard and reacted to a bit more vociferously. I sit in planning board meetings in 3 different counties, and I've never heard anything like that. It was shocking. But perhaps it was just, ill-chosen words with no ill intent. I guess we'll find out. I wouldn't recommend that you make approving a developer's agreement contingent upon some future action, because this is a contract that's going to get the town reimbursed for the expenses it's going to incur to do the expert review, i.e. NFPA standards that even the developer at least has members on its team acknowledge that they don't have the expertise to manage. And if they don't submit a proper site plan and don't submit the tools that the town and the planning board need to conduct a site plan review, to do a seeker examination, then either the matter is never going to get scheduled, or it's going to get positive decked or turned down. I mean, if you can't identify and address the impact issues and learn whether or not they can be reasonably mitigated, you're on a one-way street. So, there's a lot of options up there, but getting reimbursed, I don't think should be tied to that. But I believe that the town should carefully watch how this unfolds from here, because I'm going to assume it was ill-chosen language, but what I heard and saw was rather disconcerting as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
So this is staying the way it is. We're not making any changes. I just want to be clear on that.
Yes, the resolution will stay the way it is, unless somebody wants to chime in. Okay, not hearing anything. Mrs. Munson?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Item 16. I'm going to recuse myself. You've got the helm. I'll be back in a few minutes. And we'll move on from there.
Sure. I need somebody to move item 16, the resolution authorizing settlement and directing town council to collect same and discontinue Collier Trust litigation matter.
I so move.
Second?
I'll second if Doug's first, and I'm not sure which one of us, but
I thought Joe was the first.
Then I'll second.
No? Okay. Sorry, it's kind of hard to tell with my back to people's faces and with the microphone.
it's fine either way.
Okay, so I have Joe and Doug on that.
Yes.
Any discussion about it? We did discuss a lot about it, I think, the last meeting, but anyway, is there any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none. Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Bronwyn Losi,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
and I have Ed Levine is recused.
And the resolution passes.
You're a natural.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Good teacher.
So let's move on then. Board member reports. Andrea, you want to get off?
Sure. Two reports for the Youth Commission and the library are in the packet. I missed the environmental council meeting. This is awful, but it was due to a whole mess of problems with my septic system in my house. You don't have to put that in the minutes.
You have your own environmental concern.
Yes, big environmental concern.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Andra.
Oh, it's too bad, Joe. This is really good stuff.
Well, I did attend the CAC meeting and it's almost complete the inventory that we've been doing on the natural resources, and should be complete by the next meeting. That's it.
Nice. Bronwyn, you're up.
Sure. The Salt Point, as Pat mentioned in his notes, there was a cleanup at Salt Point, and the osprey eggs should be hatching within the next week. So that's very exciting. The Lansing Advisory Committee on the Power Plant Future, we welcomed our new member, got an update on a bit of the law that Plattsburgh has put in, or an overview, I should say. And then heard from Irene Weiser to give us an idea of what cryptocurrency is, what it entails, and different possible regulations about it. And then the broadband committee is covered in Joe's notes, I'm sure. So.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. I have a question for you, and this is not to put you on the spot, but the broadband. Well, I'll circle back when Joe speaks, and I'll pitch it out that way, because I think it has to do with the county, not with your broadband committee. Okay, locally. So I guess, Doug, you're up.
I don't have any report with the Water Sewer Advisory Board. I was unable to attend the meeting. So Ed, I'll let you take care of that. Couple quick things from the Planning Board working meeting on the 10th. Lansing Market's looking for an addition, put a liquor store in on the property. And also a rink addition for the Lansing Food Pantry. We had a nice little presentation for the Cunic Lake Scenic Byway. And that's all I got.
Okay. I thought that presentation on the scenic byway was illuminating. That was extremely educational. And a little more depth into what was really going on. I appreciate whoever set that up. Okay, Joe, you're up.
Okay, bear with me because I got a lot of things to go over. I sent you all the draft of the Tompkins County harmful algal bloom strategy, and we all should be reading that over and making comments. Are people aware of the change in the cannabis legislation that the state put in? Basically, the town is going to be given the option to opt out of having cannabis stores in our locale, or what it looks like, though I don't think they've finalized any regulations, is that we'll be able to regulate them much like we regulate liquor stores. And on top of that, the state's going to have regulations as to places they can or can't be placed, and some limits on them. The way it's going to work is we have until the end of the year to decide to opt out. After that, we won't be able to choose to opt out again. If we opt out, we can opt back in, and then we're in permanently. So we have the next few months to decide whether or not we want to opt out. We talked about this at TCOG a bit, and I think what's going to happen is they're most likely to get located around the malls. I don't think they're going to be located in the northern part of Lansing. I don't think they'll draw enough people to make it worthwhile to put one up there. But of course, that's just my impression. We don't know for sure. And so I just wanted to bring that up. Any questions on that? I know I kind of went over it quickly.
A couple of things is that was the planning board taking the initiative on this? Maybe I misunderstood. Somebody asked me that question in email.
The planning board's got a subcommittee that's been looking into it and discussing it. We haven't gotten back together in the last month or so, but I took it to TCOG to see if I could get more information and got some. And there's a subcommittee that I'm sure will come back at some point with a recommendation.
Well, okay, but that's for the county. But once again, we take
No,
care of
no,
our-
planning
right?
board. Our planning board also has a committee.
Well,
And that committee asked me to go to TCOG and see what other towns were doing. From what I heard from there, all the other towns are planning on opting in. I didn't hear anybody planning on opting out. And now our committee has to get together and talk, and we have not yet.
Okay, so the conversations we have with the supervisors that some of the supervisors are still looking at information.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Better?
Yeah.
All right. So meeting with the supervisors, we find that some opinions vary and some are still in the uncharted water trying to get a grasp of this, as we all are. There are some that I think, as I share this, that we prohibit it on town property, smoking it, as we do smoking in general. If we can enforce that, I would be firm on that. The other part is, I'm not so concerned about the revenue stream on that, which is kind of like the carrot. To me, is like, do we want that sold in our town, or do they simply buy it next door and drive it here and smoke it here? The reality is, how many people you really think smoke weed in Tompkins County and in Lansing? And I think I'm not throwing stones when I say that, but how do you regulate it also? Also, if they sell it, are they allowed to actually smoke it there, as you would have if you were in a bar and you could actually drink alcohol there? So there's certain things you can limit as far as where it goes and where it doesn't go. And I really, like I said, to me, the strongest opinion I have even from a medical standpoint, there are concerns about people who smoke marijuana. Some do it because of a medical necessity, but some also, you have a better chance of certain other conditions being accelerated if you're prone to those. Schizophrenia is one of them. Now, I believe what I was reading is 15%, but once again, you smoke cigarettes, you drink alcohol heavily, there are other things also. So it's a risk factor, okay? But there's a lot of risk factors out there. Having said that, I think the main concern I have is people participating on town property is the first thing I would be concerned about. Whether we have it sold in the town of Lansing or in the village of Lansing and not the town of Lansing outside, I don't know. That's for maybe some more discussion. But right now, at least for me personally, I'm leaning pretty strong to one area. The other areas, I think, are still up for more investigation, at least on my part. Does any of the other board members have any comments on this?
I just want to quickly state that I think these are mostly edibles and not smokables, but I don't know for sure what is going to come in. But other communities, it seems to be mostly candy bars and gummies and things like that rather than stuff that's being smoked.
Okay, that's great news. This is all part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think
don't know.
there's still a lot of unknowns in this, and that's making it harder to make decisions. But it's good to be looking at it and thinking about it at the early stages.
Anyone else have any questions or comments from the board? Okay.
Okay.
Ready to do more, Joe?
Oh yeah. Broadband committee. We've put together an RFP for the spectrum negotiation. CJ has been finalizing it this week with the committee members. I'm sure it's going to be going out either late this week or early next week.
It's
It is out? Okay.
Yeah, to a couple firms that we've been able to contact. Yeah, and they've gotten back to us too.
Excellent. And the county broadband committee was supposed to be meeting monthly. For some reason, it's not going to meet in May, mostly because they didn't organize a May date. And so it will be meeting in June. And my understanding is one of the main things that's going to be on discussion is how much of that meeting is confidential and how much gets shared with various boards and with the public. And there's a lot of concern from committee members, not just myself, about the fact that we're told this is a confidential meeting, you can't share it with your boards, which doesn't work for most of the committee members. And so I've shared, I agree. I'm not happy with that declaration from the county, and me and several other board members are pushing back on it strongly.
Question for you.
Yes.
The TCOG, I think, and the town actually passed a resolution to give money for I think it was a survey or something along those lines, some analysis for broadband. I have the resolution here. This is not trying to put anybody on the spot. Resolution 20-140 that we're going to commit some money to this. We don't know is the scope. There's a little bit of a controversy as far as what the scope of work is going to be on this. Is this for a main line or is this for a last mile? And that's something you can maybe reach out. Once again, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot. we're having a conversation. You may reach out to your fellow TCOG members and say, okay, because the understanding is in at least one municipality, it was the final mile. And it was somewhat contested as we're voting on it because they thought it would be the final mile. And now we're getting conflicting maybe information that's a main line instead, like ours would be a backbone, what we're doing here. So I think we need some clarity what that $80,000 that the county, I think we have to also jump in, and maybe I'm reading the wrong resolution, I don't think I am. We all voted on it.
My understanding, Ed, is that it's going to give us a couple of options of how to go all the way to that last mile. It's not going to engineer out all of that aspect. It's going to engineer out how the basic spine gets designed and how we get to the last mile.
I would have some conversations then with people, because there's some concern that this was supposed to be for the final mile. And
Okay.
not for the main. And there have been some people that maybe either have misunderstood it from other municipalities, or maybe, I don't want to say misled, but maybe misread it, or maybe it was miscommunicated. I'm being as gracious as I can. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I think they need clarity of where this money is going and what the end purpose is. And we also have, when I'm talking to the supervisors, we are very concerned about the outlying areas being left out on this, of that potential. And it may have happened in the past, and this is one of the things now, especially we know how important the infrastructure package is, with broadband being one of them. To me, I see it like electricity, that is necessary for everyone. I mean, to me, those are almost equal. But anyway, I'm just sharing information with you, and you may just want to make some phone calls, or if you meet next, have those conversations to say, what was the intent of this money that we're going to allocate? Because I don't think we've paid it yet. I think we're supposed to do it when it's done. I could be wrong. We're trying to look into that. But I'd be very concerned if it's one thing when it should have been another.
I understand. The coverage area of this is all of Tompkins County plus all the school districts that extend outside Tompkins County, because there's like 6 or 7 that have areas outside. And the idea behind it is to have every household within that district have a minimum of 100, I forget the,
Is it gigabytes?
yeah, 100 somethings up and down. And the idea is every single household within that district will be planned for having 100 megabytes. So if you're getting 25 now, you're considered underserved and you're part of it. If you're getting over 100 now, you're not part of this study area. You're considered as having sufficient service at the moment. So it's really it's really looking at, you know, our outer areas of the town.
Totally agree. And as you know, in the past, if one person on the road had service, it was considered that everyone had service. And
yes.
That's why it's so critical that you almost do a broadband census, door to door, and say who has it and who doesn't. And I'm also concerned about capacity later, as far as, you know, but one miracle at a time here. Okay, so.
Well, that's why we're doing our own census. We're not going door to door. We're driving up and down. We had somebody drive up and down the road and say, this is the cable. Here's where it stops. Everybody past this point doesn't have service. And so we did that extra step to make sure that we don't lose anybody in Lansing, which is what we're focused on, to make sure all of Lansing gets it. And so we're doing extra to make sure that all of our citizens get added in who aren't getting cable service now.
Thank you.
I'm going to let you talk about Bolton Point. There's been a committee put together talking about electrical vehicle charging stations. There's grant money out there to put these into the town. They cost about $8,000 each, and the grant covers somewhere between 80 and 90%. It depends on what the income average is for our town. And I think we're right on the edge. So I'm not sure which category we fall into. The committee is looking at putting 7 different stations in Myers Park, Town Hall, and a couple of the fire stations. And this would end up costing the town probably in the $10,000 to $12,000 range. And I'm coming to the town board now and saying, are we interested in moving forward with this? Or is the town board not interested in buying electrical vehicle charging stations? I think that they're really critical. I think that this is a way for us to start building that Lansing is available for the cars of the future. As I'm sure you're aware, some of the car companies in the next 10 years are going to phase out gasoline cars altogether. And so here's a way to start getting some minimal charging stations available in the town. And so I'm just putting that out. I can answer questions as well.
We've had multiple discussions in the past about this privately, and Patrick and I have, and CJ. And so obviously, we're just waiting for the right time. It seems like now that the money's available, it'd be the right time to do it. You have to get in front of these things. It's like trying to drive with a gas car cross country and not having gas stations. These are things that I think should be moved forward, especially if now is the time to do it. Sometimes it's the right idea at the wrong time. This seems like the right idea at the right time. And there are various spots that it could be in. We even discussed one up at the highway department building. Of course, we're looking at a new facility there. So where do we go from there? Can that be revisited maybe next year? I don't know. I'll talk about this a little bit down the road tonight, but those are things I think we should look at this seriously and get the best value we can for our taxpayers to go through there. And I know CJ, she drives an electric car. She has great input on that. I've already reached out to Bolton Point. We mentioned that when they transition over to another pickup truck or car, would they consider an electric vehicle to see where it's feasible? There's some machines that simply won't work yet. The technology's not there yet, but there's other vehicles that maybe would be. So these conversations, I think, are getting into the mainstream. So I personally would be one that would like to look in, have someone look into that or have, take this to the next step. How's the rest of the board about this?
Well, let me respond to one of your points about putting one in the highway barn, which we were first considering. But the way electricity is charged to the town, we pay both a meter rate and a demand rate. And the demand rate is whatever you peak out at using. And so if you put one of these charging stations in an area that gets used once or twice a month, the electrical charges are going to be tremendous because you'll have to pay the demand rate on one person charging their car once a week, as opposed to a more high volume area where people are charging their car multiple times throughout the day, and that demand is averaged over much more usage. And so if the town were to put one in at the garage, it might end up costing us significantly in electric usage, more than we're able to recoup in the charges that these stations have. So we picked areas in which we thought there would be regular usage, so we didn't end up having a big electric bill as a result of the charging station not being used enough.
So to your point, where were the other locations that you recommended?
Town Hall, Myers Park, and the fire stations that are being used as commuter lots.
Once again, to your criteria, Myers Park's used half a year. Does that also fall under that same concern as the highway department where it's not being used half a year?
We're looking into that because the question is, if someone came in February and charged their car once, that might be a high bill. And so I specifically asked, can we turn these things off during certain parts of the year where we'd only spike a electric meter? And we don't have an answer to that yet. And so we're still trying to understand that question because that's a very good point.
We're trying to do a parallel universe with water, like we shut off the water at the park.
Yeah.
We don't get charged for that. Maybe we don't put one down at the fire station down by Drake Road because it's close to the town, but maybe you put one farther out on the corner of Ridge and Algerine. Maybe you put one for your fire station out in North Lansing where it's located there because, like you said, lack of demand. But if you could turn these on and off, maybe that's also another option. And also, what are the costs of these? 10 grand each, and with the grants, they're around 2,000 maybe, or do you have different numbers than I do?
Ballpark, yeah, 8,000 each, and we're going to pay about 1,600
Okay,
of that 8,000. Of that 8,000.
Okay. Anything else?
As I indicated earlier, I've been meeting with Doug Road residents, trying to get everybody to understand what's happening with the proposed bridge and making sure that we got as many questions answered as we can and getting people involved in the project as early as we can so that while we're figuring out how much to charge, we're sure to, or how much to ask for in the grant, we're sure that we get all of people's concerns in there. The Transportation Council meeting was yesterday. New York State reported that the Salmon Creek Bridge is still on schedule, so that's moving along fine. They've got the abutments pretty much done, and they're going to start the next stage fairly soon. And we talked a little bit about the Doug Road thing, and CJ's asking for more information so that we can really follow up on that bridge project. I've had people, this is a new point, I've had people question whether or not the town can switch from Country Acres to the SPCA for animal control. The main thing that I've heard from people is it's a really long distance to go get your animal if it's taken to Country Acres, and ASPCA facilities are more convenient to town residents. And so I was wondering if the town board was interested in putting this out and asking for bids from people. I think if we do that now, it would give us time to work that into the budget session and see whether ASPCA is the same price, whether it's a lesser price. Maybe Country Acres would reassess their price at a lower price. But we've been doing this for 3 years now with Country Acres, maybe a little bit more, and maybe it's time to revisit that.
We've had these discussions before. We're going to have them again. Does Country Acres, go ahead, Ms. Spencer.
I just to add a little footnote here. I can't remember when it was. It was a while ago that I met. I think maybe Ed was there, but it was Deb Trumbull and Donna Scott, I believe.
Mhm.
And we talked about it, and I was tasked with contacting SPCA to talk to them, maybe see if they would submit a bid. I called, I left a message, no one ever called me back. Just that's my update.
When are you talking about? A few years ago or a few months ago? I'm not clear.
Honestly, the months and years have just run together. I'm not sure when it was. It was before COVID. I'm pretty sure that.
My understanding is Donna Scott has talked to the SPCA recently, and they are interested in putting in a bid.
So refresh my memory, Mrs. Munson, the Country Acres, do they have a no-kill policy?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know.
I know the SPCA does, and I think that was one of the concerns that when citizens talked to me about it, they were concerned about if Country Acres did have a euthanasia policy, where I believe that the SPCA perhaps doesn't. And now, once again, we have to weigh all the apples and all the oranges to see where this pans out. And see what services they do. And like I said, we're open to discussion. I mean, we put out bids before and in other services. So that's a discussion that maybe hopefully the SPCA will respond quickly and thoroughly. And Country Acres will also, and we'll see what happens. Okay.
Okay, so what can I do to help move this forward?
Have somebody call Mrs. Munson from the SPCA.
I will have that happen. Thank you. And that's my report. Sorry it took so long.
I think we got some good discussion. Anybody else have more comments for Joe before we move on? So Bronwyn, for you, the Osprey will be safe this year. There'll be no fireworks. So I don't know which nest it is. I think it's the one at South Point, right? But they have 2 or 3. Don't you have 2 nests over there? I think you have 2 poles. Or 1.
There's 2 poles.
2 poles. Is it the one that's in the fire zone from the north? Well, anyways, doesn't matter. We're not going to have fireworks this year, okay? For a variety of different reasons, and one of them is because we're more concerned about our citizens going there. We don't know if the protocol is going to change with the busing. The busing will be twice as long because we have 2 roads that basically are not operable, part of Ludloville and also part of, and then the bridge is out because usually they went one way and used to circle around. So amongst other things. So there's a variety of different factors that it was unanimous with our board members that we would not do that. Okay. June 30th is what we're shooting for next year. So save that date. June 30th, 2022. We hope to have it done, have the fireworks done then. There might be other stuff announcements down the road as the community council that will affect Lansing. And we'll see how it goes. I don't want to be premature about it, but I want to get that out tonight. I used the Ospreys as a segue. And do they use drones to take pictures of the nests?
We have a nest camera.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, good. All right. Town Center Committee, we're gonna talk about that, about the land offers here. Highway commitment, we're gonna talk, we already talked about that, planting the seeds with some of that stuff. And now we're talking about the roof replacements. Had a bad rain, the old building, that used to be the old highway department building, it leaked a lot. Much to Pat's chagrin, he's the one that had to go over there. So that needs to be addressed. It's capped now, but it's gonna probably have to have a roof done quickly with the perhaps a metal roof. So that's something we're gonna probably have to put out to bid. The other two, and this is where maybe Mr. Dake comes into play, is the community center and also the historical building.
Schoolhouse.
Thank you, schoolhouse. Those may also be metal. It looks like the schoolhouse is going to need one also. And we don't know about the community center, but we suspect that also it may, if it's up to the board, we'll send out an RFP to see who wants to do this and what the bids are. But I need your eyes on this, Doug, if you can. I know you're extremely busy, but maybe sometime in the near future to see what's entailed there. And they may be metal roofs. And the one building over there is already have a metal roof on it. So it would blend in. So we'll see. That's just an FYI. Do I know how much? No. Do I know, can they perhaps do a bundle and get a better deal? Perhaps. Or we'll offer them one at a time, like that.
Yep. I'll pick your brain, Doug.
Do it too hard, it might hurt.
Well, that's all I have right now as far as I'm concerned. Let's move on to our work session. We'll directly talk about the highway, talk about the town center land offers. And quite frankly, to sum up, I'll keep going. Okay. To sum up what the town center committee came up with is that we're not entertaining any RFPs for the town land until we get our stormwater plan in place and our traffic study in place. For anyone. End of story. I think that's important information before we move forward. And I don't know if the letter went out, but I think the letter went out to the board. I think you saw it maybe 2 meetings ago. We had a long meeting there and I forgot at the end, but it was like 10:30, but I think it's there. But that was the recommendation of the advisory board of the town center committee, that we wait until the stormwater plan is in place as far as what we need to do. The same thing with the traffic study. So that's that.
Do you need a confirmation from the board on that, or?
No, because from an advisory committee, this is the advice we're giving you.
Mhm.
We recommend, I mean, if you want to follow the advice, which is we're not accepting RFPs, which what happens is that the town center committee would be accepting the RFPs and they would be advising you to either accept them or not. So right now, I think we're not even at that stage. We did pay our bill, didn't we?
It's a clue.
It's a clue, yeah. So anyways, I don't think it's necessary because there's not going to be any action taken.
Do we know,
I agree that that's the right approach, so thank you.
do we know if the Rochester group received the letter? Is the letter sent out?
Well, I mean, once again, we have not received any RFPs from anybody. And if they do send us an RFP, I suggest that we send to them the advisory letter that we're not accepting it. And people can send RFPs all they want or they can ask about it. We'll say at this time, we're not having conversations about it. Now, if you want me to reach out to certain people, I think we're being more specific than we need to. Guy, what do you think?
Well, I think you summarized the discussion of the town center committee pretty accurately, and it's not that they were in favor or against any number of 3 or 4 informal ideas or offers that were floated. I think that it's the correct decision to make sure you understand what your master planning needs are and what the town's needs are for that land before you start chopping it into more and different pieces, including the highway and the traffic study, which frankly, you could have argued has been overdue for, a few years, but I won't go into that. So at the end of the day, the bigger concern is that the Cornerstone Group had originally been given a license by the town to go in and do some geotechnical study because they were interested in parcel J. Parcel J has a lot of wetlands, as had been identified as something that might need to host some stormwater facilities, and it might not be, because of those wetlands, a correct parcel to sell. It may turn out that it is a correct parcel to sell. We don't even know exactly how the road's going to run through there. So the parcel that's being referred to is an idea on a map. It's, it's sort of been informally reviewed, but until you really understand what the town is going to do, what the stormwater and highway needs are for that site, it's tough to pick off a piece of land and say, oh, let's do this, let's do that. Regardless, Cornerstone is now proposing to come back and do more and additional studies, thousands of dollars worth of wetlands delineation. They've submitted a letter that they suggest is a formal offer. It's not, doesn't have terms or a price or anything. And I didn't want the town to get far enough down the road where they feel like they've been hoodwinked into something, or they had unilateral expectations, when in fact there's been no agreement, there's been no offer, and there's been no reply. So the letter was basically going to say, we're not considering any offers at this time. And if you proceed at your own risk. Don't come back to us saying you should have approved it. You should approve this. We relied on you. You hoodwinked us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it was really more of the letter was going out to forestall a potential argument that may arise in the event they do not want to wait for the traffic impact study and stormwater analysis to be completed. So it was really more or less just to give someone fair notice before they plunk down a bunch of money on something they may not be able to use.
So it hasn't been sent to them?
Not that I know. It was supposed to be put on town letterhead and signed by you, as I understood. So if your office hasn't sent it, then I'd say it hasn't been sent.
Well, the reason I'm saying this is because, once again, the chicken and the egg, we're having this conversation. I guess if the board's comfortable with that advice.
Right. The alternative was for me to send the letter to their council, which is how I originally structured it. And at the end of the day, the town was giving this advice, the town center committee was giving this advice to the town board, because it's an advisory committee and shouldn't be making policy or deciding things. That's what advisory committees are.
All right,
and
so
there was a suggestion from a board member that, yes, the town board should at least review this. It, for whatever reason, you concurred. It made it to last month's agenda, but didn't get discussed. It got kicked back and put on this agenda. If you want me to format it so that it's me sending it to Cornerstone's council to start that conversation, based on what I saw and heard from board members today, I'll go ahead and do so first thing in the morning.
all right, so first of all, is the board comfortable with this action of getting the stormwater? Okay, we got it. Okay, good. All right. So so if that's the case, I would prefer, and of course that's the board, to have you take this matter and send a letter from your office, and that way, if there's any communication, you can talk directly. But the bottom line is that nothing will be done until these two studies have been completed, and then we will move forward in the direction that the advisory committee advises the town, and then the town can decide what to do.
I just want to ask Guy if he would like a formal vote from the town board or whether the informal discussion is sufficient.
Well, I don't think we're adopting a final policy or taking a final action. We're just telling them you're not going forward. I don't think I need a formal vote to be authorized to send a letter on behalf of the board. But if it got to the point where you were going to authorize an offer, you were going to adopt a stormwater plan for the site, obviously that's really a policy-making decision of some sort. So I'm comfortable just with the directive to send that out and start a discussion, if necessary, council to council, and see where it goes. I'm just very concerned that, I don't want a developer that we've had positive relationships with in the past to be, putting out $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 with an expectation that they're getting this particular parcel, when the data and the facts aren't suggesting that that will necessarily be the outcome of these studies.
I think we can do, Guy, I think we just do it with a simple motion. And then, and then we can, 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 and then we Okay, that's
Even if
fine.
you wish, I don't, it's up to you.
My personal opinion is that I want to have a trail of action. Going
I didn't
forward.
understand what you just said. Sorry.
My personal opinion is I want to have form of trail of action. In other words, you've got the advice from the advisory committee, the town board, maybe the summation in the minutes would suffice. And we move forward on as long as there's some sort of documentation that here is the trail of action. So as you would say, company A doesn't feel as though they've been hoodwinked on this. And I think once you send that letter out, that'll probably confirm the fact that there will be no action taken at this time. So as long as it will show something in the minutes about that, I'm fine, as long as there's a record to protect our council.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to do a short motion, it would be something on the order of the town board acknowledges receipt of the recommendation and advice from the committee, approves the same, and authorizes the notice letter be delivered. Something like that, if you wanted a paper trail saying that the advice was received, the board agreed with it, and the committee was directed to go ahead and send it out. If you felt that was necessary, I think it could be as simple as that.
I like that.
I do too.
Okay.
I'll move that.
Who wants to buy Mrs. Bunsen?
So, did you move it or did Joe move it? Joe?
Joe did, Mike was.
Okay.
And Guy, you're gonna send me tomorrow what you just said?
You're on mute.
Yes, although, it'll depend on how good your coffee is in the morning.
I don't do coffee, sorry.
Doesn't matter. Do you want a motion or not?
Bye, Duncan.
Yeah, no problem. I'll probably send it to you right now, just so you don't have to wait.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed?
OMT, real quick. Bergman is finishing up their analysis for the highway department building. And I was hoping to maybe have that in the June presentation, what we see what the options are to the board. Or maybe we just have them send out, we can review them. There's a committee that will look at them first with their recommendation. But they are making progress. We'll see where that goes. Good news is that interest rates are still around 2%. Bad news is cost of materials are, as Doug well knows more than anybody else, are a little bit expensive. And that's an understatement. So we'll see where the numbers are, and we'll have further discussion as we move forward one way or the other with this concept. Okay. Do you want to take a break before going into executive session, because we need to talk about a few things?
Yep.
Before we go into executive session, I kind of like Bronwyn's idea of, could Guy give the public just a quick understanding of why the board goes into executive session? Because I feel like we go into executive session a lot, and I would like the public to at least get, a couple of minutes of why this happens.
And that's fine, but for the record, those are all reasons to go.
I understand.
Okay, Guy, you want to give us 5 minutes?
Well, yeah, I mean, I sort of gave a pretty detailed email in response to the request and said, if I have to present anything, let me know, so I'll have it prepared. But okay, it's a pretty common area of law that is pretty commonly misapplied and misunderstood. So, and without stowing any thrones, it's because the actual open meetings law itself is not really well written. So what it starts out with is a mirror of the New York State version of what were called sunshine laws, i.e. the thought that open and transparent, openness and transparency in governmental operations and communications will promote disinfection and getting rid of the bad bugs and problems and distrust that have plagued Tammany Hall since the dawn of time. So they start with a presumption of everything is open, and then there's a list of exceptions. And for simplification, the list of exceptions cover about 6 items, generally referred to as items that arise under what's known as the executive session rule. Basically, they're matters pertaining to litigation, proposed, threatened, or current litigation, medical, credit, and financial history of promotion, discipline, demotion, appointment, hiring of individuals, not the creation of a new position, but the pay, performance, evaluation of individuals who are about to be hired to, or departing that position, and a few variants on that theme. Obviously, we'll get into some other stuff a little later. The acquisition another exception is the acquisition or sale of real estate or certain types of securities, i.e. financing, generally bonds, where disclosure of the specific terms that are being discussed or negotiated would necessarily affect the purchase price or the consideration ultimately to be paid by the municipality. Matters which imperil public safety, matters which might disclose the identity of an informant relative to a law enforcement, including specifically, most importantly, open and ongoing investigations and whistleblowers, things like that. Preparation and administration of certain types of exams, mainly civil service, collective bargaining negotiations for unions, and generally anything that has a specific confidentiality rule under state or federal law. That's sort of the short list, but it's not entirely accurate and it's not fully exclusive. So the town board and any public body, not an advisory committee, a board or public body, an agency that has convened for the purposes of conducting public business where a quorum is present. So if you wanted to discuss how to do something better, and you had a member of the ZBA, a member of the town board, a member of the planning board, 2 people from the public, the town attorney, the town engineer, the town planner, and I don't know, a couple other people, you wouldn't have a quorum of any board there, and you wouldn't be required to follow the open meetings law. Now, so you have a general rule and a bunch of exceptions. Now there are exceptions to the exceptions. Okay, there are some things that regardless of whether it is or is not valid for executive session, the open meetings law still doesn't apply to, because, for example, you're not even in a meeting. So one example I gave you, no quorum present, not conducting public business. One common example that there's a lot of confusion about is training sessions. Those are not for the purposes of conducting public business, and it doesn't matter if a quorum is present or not. They're not subject to the open meetings law, period, full stop. Public hearings. Public hearings are not part of a public meeting. They are a completely separate procedure that operates under separate rules. When you go into a public hearing, you actually adjourn your meeting. You go out of a public meeting, and therefore the open meetings law doesn't apply, and you follow the rules of a public hearing. I think that's a little bit of a hyper technical distinction, but it nonetheless exists. And if you read Committee on Open Government rules, you'll see that. So we've got a general rule with exceptions, and exceptions to the exceptions, as well as things that the general rule, as well as the exceptions, don't even apply to. And then you've got a list of exemptions, things that even if it could apply, it still doesn't apply. And that's where you get most commonly into what's called a closed session for advice of legal counsel, because legal counsel advice, medical records under HIPAA, i.e. an employee's medical condition, those are all protected as specifically privileged under state or federal law. It does a little good for the town to receive confidential legal advice in a contested litigation matter if what that advice is, it becomes a matter of public record. You might as well just hand the people that are suing you your entire defense plan and all your evidence. Eventually, they do get all your evidence, but there's a procedure for that. It's called discovery, depositions, trial, and that procedure isn't governed by the open meetings law. So generally speaking, when a town is going into executive session, it is electing, though it's not mandated to do so except in a few cases, to discuss certain sensitive matters in confidence, either because of their fiscal or interpersonal, i.e. personnel impacts. The law supports that. It's perfectly legal, But when you're in executive session, you can't take formal action, or if you do, you must have minutes. And you should not be discussing other matters other than the subject matter of the executive session. That's people may have heard, we're going into executive session to discuss a litigation matter and the hiring of a particular person and their qualifications, and to discuss a land contract where we don't want to disclose our negotiating terms, prices, or purposes for buying the land, because if the seller realizes, we're over a barrel, the price is going to go up. That's a bad idea. If you go into closed session, it's a little trickier. You can't really make decisions in closed session, but you sort of can. You can give directives, but not make final decisions. So you could go into closed session in litigation, for example, to discuss a settlement offer, and you could exchange a ton of advice, and the town can generally agree, we're going to accept that settlement. Okay, great to know. But you have to come out of closed session and accept the settlement by resolution or motion at the meeting. So in this particular case, I think I'll let you guys make the resolution, but I think the purpose of the executive session is to discuss the terms of hiring, specific qualifications, and characteristics of a particular persons who are being considered for particular jobs. The town won't be discussing the job itself and how the job description might change or be fulfilled, or how the town might restructure its workforce generally. It's talking about the specific candidate, their pay, their remuneration, their medical conditions, their hours, their benefits, stuff like that. So I'll leave it to you from there. And if you have other questions, let me know. But there are thousands of opinions of the Committee on Open Government on this stuff. And many of them change over time, because sometimes they take a position based on how the law was written, and either the open meetings law has changed or the courts have disagreed with the administrative interpretation thereof, and they either amend the law or they change their interpretation. It's not an easy thing to fully administer unless you're really steeped into it day to day. And I think Debbie, having to deal with FOIL, will probably recognize that some of the characteristics, the general rule and the exceptions, then the exceptions to the exceptions, and then the things that it doesn't apply to, that unfortunately FOIL is about as well written as the open meetings law. So great laws, laudable purposes. I think the state should probably update them and give them a little more clarity and a little more teeth. But, that probably won't happen until after the next election.
So,
Well, thank you for your,
go ahead, Brown.
I was just going to say, since I originally asked you to help clarify it, thank you for your valiant effort to make some of that more clear. Thanks.
Okay. And if
Is that helpful? Because I'm reading, Joe's nice enough to give me these green cards, but it's a little bit, nothing personal, but I need a little more help than that.
I have them too, and I used one as a quick reference, and when I read it, I realized that it actually wasn't accurate. That's why I sort of circled back and said, you can't fit all of those interpretations on a marketing tool. And some of the stuff at the very end is actually not subject to executive session. Those are the exemptions, not the exceptions. It's a completely different section of law, but the overall idea is still pretty accurate.
So Guy, we'll take a 5-minute break. And then we'll go into executive session afterwards. And this will pertain to, I believe, 2 candidates. And also, once again, do I have to come back out and go back in? Because it also pertains to the performance of an existing employee.
No, you can move all of your bases for executive session in one motion, go into session and come out. It would be wasteful and problematic to jump in, jump out, jump in, jump out. Just list all your bases, and if for some reason you forgot one, then you would come out and remove.
Okay, so do you want to take the break first? Do you want me to have us come back, then go into, or do you want to just go right into executive session and now we're going to take a break? How you want to handle this?
I'm okay.
You're okay? All right, everybody okay? I mean, we can keep going then.
You're talking about number 2 on the green card, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So if I want to read it verbatim, this pertains to medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person / corp, or matters leading to said dismissal, removal, promotion, employment, discipline, demotion, or suspension pertaining to 2 candidates and an existing town employee. And I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second.
And then second it.
Oh, it was Doug's.
All in
I believe-
favor?
I believe Doug seconded it.
Okay, 8:56, whatever.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
And now we're taking a short break. Right?
No, we're